One of Australia's first mobile abattoirs has been built in Perth and should be processing cattle right on the farm before the end of the month. One advantage of doing the job on the farm is it helps farmers control the quality of their meat. There's also no need to transport the animals from the property, which has obvious benefits, especially when animal welfare issues hit the headlines. And as Michelle Stanley reports, it won't be long before you could see one of these mobile units popping up in your patch.
It's been a long time coming. For more than a decade, producers have been considering and researching ways to cut down food miles and improve animal welfare with in-house, or should I say on-farm, slaughtering units.
This, from a farmer processor perspective, is what I call the holy grail.
Chris Ballage heads up the Victorian ag tech company Provenir, and about a year ago it commissioned its first mobile abattoir. And it's just arrived.
I'm a scientist by training, farmer by choice, and I've been producing premium quality meat for the last 7 years under my own label, which was a paddock to plate label. But I always had to have the meat processed at the abattoir, and having to drive the animals an hour and a half and 150 kilometres to the abattoir. I could see the stress that was incurred by the animals. And that was a really strong motivator for me.
A mobile abattoir is exactly as it sounds, a slaughtering facility on wheels. From the outside, it just looks like a big old truck. But inside, it's quite a bit more than that.
So the unit will arrive onto farm, so we call it the MPU, or the Mobile Processing Unit, will arrive on the farm. It integrates with the farmers' cattle yards. From there, the animals are put into a small holding pen, and then they're led into the back of the truck where the knocking process occurs. And we've got a fairly unique knocking box, which has got quite a bit of technology adapted to it to, again, minimise the stress for the animal just prior to slaughter process. From there, the animal goes through the normal processes of the abattoir, so there's dehiding, dehocking, decapitation, evisceration, and then the carcass is halved, and at that point the animal is transferred into another unit that is sitting alongside the MPU, which we refer to as the RV, or the refrigerated vehicle. And the half carcasses are loaded into the refrigerated vehicle, at which point at the end of the day that refrigerated vehicle returns back to the further processing unit where the carcass is hanging for an additional couple of days, and then they go through the butchery process into the retail-ready product that we will distribute.
With only a few of these units understood to have been built in Australia, it's not your simple flat pack to put together over the weekend. Perth-based manufacturers Simmons Global were commissioned for this unit, and they had to engineer each piece from the ground up. Chief Executive Dave Simmons described it as trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. But one of the trickiest parts of units like this actually comes from Australia's strict food processing and transport regulations.
So we're taking something which is a mobile piece of equipment, so road regulations, trafficable trailers and things like that, and all the engineering that goes to that, which is fairly straightforward and largely been done before. And then we're taking a set of regulations being the abattoir specification, which is and has been built for a fixed facility.
And that means it's not cheap. We're talking millions of dollars worth. Neither Chris Ballage nor Dave Simmons would put an exact price on it, but there are at least 7 figures.
There's a lot in it. Simple things like hygiene, taken for granted in a fixed facility, but in this sort of environment, it is a costly and challenging pursuit. There's also things like potable water. Very simple when you're on a scheme water supply, but when you're taking potable water, you've got to have quality assurance on your water. You've got to have traceability for all of those aspects so that you can have a quality product at the end of the day. So there's all of these aspects that have been built into and are largely hidden in this particular unit that make it a very costly thing.
This unit has been sent east. It's going to be used on properties around the New South Wales Riverina. There are 5 more slated for production though, one of which should be stationed in WA's southwest. But instead of producers doing it themselves, Provenir's business structure is to buy the cattle from the properties and slaughter them under its brand. But it isn't designed to travel far, just between properties up to about 40 kilometres away. And it also has a limited throughput of about 10 to 12 head per day. So if you're a producer sitting on a property thinking of going it alone, is this viable? Chris Ballage and Dave Simmons say maybe, but it's certainly not going to be for everyone.
It comes down to the cost of transports and things like that, the cost of maintaining traceability of your product, and if in fact that's a brand for the property, there's significant value in that. And the thing that has excited us about it, we're a company that generated from a regional beginning, and we do a lot in the ag space, and it was great to see a project or a development in the space that allows growers and producers to capitalise, I guess, on the fruits of their work, because when they send their cattle off to the process of meat processing, they get a certain dollar rate for that. They have costs and on-costs for transport, for feedlotting and things like that, whereas if they can do all that on their own property and there is no need for that, then that means that there's an economic benefit, which means our farmers are getting more money for their produce.
Dave Simmons there, the CEO of Simmons Global, ending that story from Michelle Stanley.